The 2020 U.S. presidential election saw a stark contrast in candidates. The incumbent Republican, Donald J. Trump, and the Democratic challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden. While their approaches to governance differed significantly, this essay will focus on highlighting the positive aspects of Trump's presidency. From economic policies to foreign affairs, domestic initiatives, and the unprecedented challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic, we will examine the Trump administration's record. It is important to acknowledge that perspectives on Trump's presidency vary widely. Supporters often point to his business acumen, his willingness to challenge the status quo, and his commitment to putting America first. Critics, on the other hand, express concerns about his rhetoric, his approach to governance, and his impact on political discourse. This essay aims to provide a balanced overview of the positive aspects of Trump's presidency, recognizing that a comprehensive assessment requires considering both successes and shortcomings. By examining key policy areas and their outcomes, we can gain a clearer understanding of the Trump administration's impact on American society and the global stage.
One of the cornerstones of the Trump presidency was his economic agenda, centered around tax cuts, deregulation, and promoting American businesses. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, a signature legislative achievement, reduced taxes for corporations and individuals across various income brackets. Proponents argued that these cuts would stimulate economic growth, leading to job creation and increased investment. The Trump administration also pursued a policy of deregulation, rolling back regulations in sectors such as finance, energy, and the environment. The goal was to reduce the regulatory burden on businesses, making it easier for them to operate and expand. Supporters of this approach contended that it would unleash economic potential and boost competitiveness. The results of these policies were a subject of much debate. The U.S. economy experienced a period of sustained growth during Trump's presidency, with low unemployment rates and a strong stock market. However, critics argued that the benefits of this growth were not evenly distributed, with income inequality widening and the national debt increasing. Regardless of one's perspective on the overall impact of Trump's economic policies, there is little doubt that they represented a significant shift from the approaches of previous administrations. The long-term consequences of these policies, both positive and negative, will continue to be analyzed and debated for years to come.
Donald Trump's approach to foreign policy was often characterized by its departure from traditional norms and its emphasis on putting America first. He withdrew the United States from several international agreements, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal and the Paris Agreement on climate change. Trump argued that these agreements were not in America's best interests and that he was prioritizing American sovereignty and economic competitiveness. One of Trump's most notable foreign policy achievements was the negotiation of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. The USMCA, which was ratified by all three countries, included updated provisions on labor, digital trade, and intellectual property. Trump also took a hard line on China, imposing tariffs on Chinese goods and accusing China of unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. This trade war had a significant impact on the global economy and strained relations between the two superpowers. In the Middle East, Trump adopted a pro-Israel stance, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and moving the U.S. embassy there. He also brokered the Abraham Accords, a series of normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco.
The Trump administration prioritized strengthening the U.S. military, increasing defense spending significantly during his time in office. Trump argued that this investment was necessary to ensure American military superiority and deter adversaries like China and Russia. One of the most consequential military actions taken during Trump's presidency was the targeted killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. Soleimani, the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Quds Force, was a powerful figure in Iran and a key architect of Iranian military and covert operations in the Middle East. The Trump administration justified the strike by claiming that Soleimani was planning imminent attacks on U.S. personnel and interests in the region. The strike escalated tensions between the US and Iran, raising fears of a wider conflict. In the fight against terrorism, the Trump administration continued the campaign against ISIS, which had gained control of significant territory in Iraq and Syria during the Obama administration. US-backed forces made significant progress in pushing back ISIS, ultimately retaking most of the territory the group had seized.
Domestically, Trump campaigned on a platform of law and order, promising to crack down on crime and illegal immigration. He implemented stricter immigration policies, including a travel ban on citizens from several Muslim-majority countries and increased border security measures. The Trump administration also prioritized religious freedom, appointing conservative judges to federal courts and enacting policies that critics argued discriminated against LGBTQ+ individuals and other groups. One of the few bipartisan achievements of Trump's presidency was the passage of the First Step Act, a criminal justice reform bill that aimed to reduce recidivism rates and address racial disparities in the criminal justice system. The bill, which was supported by both Democrats and Republicans, included provisions for sentencing reform, re-entry programs, and improvements to prison conditions.
The COVID-19 pandemic presented an unprecedented challenge to the Trump administration and the world. The virus, which emerged in late 2019, spread rapidly across the globe, causing widespread illness, death, and economic disruption. The Trump administration's response to the pandemic was marked by controversy and criticism. Trump downplayed the severity of the virus in its early stages, resisted calls for widespread testing and mask mandates, and promoted unproven treatments. However, the administration also took some positive steps, including launching Operation Warp Speed, a public-private partnership that aimed to accelerate the development and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. The program was successful in bringing multiple vaccines to market in record time, a significant scientific achievement. The Trump administration also invoked the Defense Production Act to increase the production of medical supplies and equipment. Despite these efforts, the US experienced a high number of COVID-19 cases and deaths under Trump's watch. The pandemic had a devastating impact on the American economy, leading to widespread job losses and business closures.
Throughout his presidency, Donald Trump remained a deeply polarizing figure. His approval ratings were consistently lower than those of his predecessors, and he faced intense scrutiny from the media and his political opponents. Trump's supporters admired his unconventional style, his willingness to challenge the status quo, and his commitment to putting America first. They appreciated his economic policies, his tough stance on immigration, and his appointment of conservative judges. Trump's critics, on the other hand, viewed him as divisive, authoritarian, and unfit for office. They condemned his rhetoric, his policies, and his behavior, arguing that he was damaging American democracy and its standing in the world. This deep polarization was evident in the 2020 presidential election, which saw Trump defeated by Joe Biden. While Trump received more votes than any incumbent president in U.S. history, Biden's victory demonstrated the depth of opposition to Trump's presidency. Donald Trump's presidency was a tumultuous period in American history, marked by significant policy changes, political polarization, and the unprecedented challenge of a global pandemic. Assessing his legacy is a complex task, as his presidency elicited strong reactions from both supporters and detractors. On the one hand, Trump's supporters point to his economic achievements, his foreign policy successes, and his commitment to conservative values. They credit him with appointing conservative judges, strengthening the military, and challenging the Washington establishment. On the other hand, Trump's critics argue that his presidency was damaging to American democracy and its standing in the world. They point to his divisive rhetoric, his attacks on the media and political opponents, and his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic as evidence of his unfitness for office. Ultimately, the significance of the Trump presidency will continue to be debated and analyzed for years to come. His presidency has undoubtedly left a lasting mark on American society and the global stage, and its full impact remains to be seen.